Okay, so this is my She-Hulk episode 4 review. Um, so this is definitely the best episode so far, and definitely the funniest. I don't know when I've laughed so much. Of course, I haven't watched the latest season of Umbrella Academy, so that's probably the last time I laughed this much was Umbrella Academy. But anyway. So it starts off with a montage of LA news sources talking about the fact that She-Hulk Jen is representing Emil Blonsky, and then they go into talking about She-Hulk as well. Because, of course, you can't expect something called the Tatler to not gossip, right? So it starts off that way. Jen goes in to see Emil Blonsky and pissed, but as she would probably say in the first episode, a normal amount of pissed, because she's asking him, what the hell? You didn't tell me any of this. What's going on? How can I represent you? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, I had no choice. Now, I'd really love to see what Wong did to force Emil Blonsky to do that. Now, if it's true that he was forced. Because, yeah, I would love to see. I realize he's a magic user, so sky's the limit. But, yeah, I'm really curious. What exactly did he do to force Emil Blonsky? Because I just don't see the Abomination being forced to do much. Unless he's up against the Hulk, or now She-Hulk. So, yeah. It's just too bad they didn't say how Wong managed to force him. But, apparently Wong forced him because he wanted to train to become Sorcerer Supreme. So I guess, it's not just that he had the title, he wanted to train more, so he was better equipped to actually wield the title, as opposed to, yeah, I have the title because Doctor Strange got dusted for 5 years. So, okay, I'll go with that, because otherwise the timeline gets even more screwy than it already was, because that would mean Shang-Chi took place in the 5-year time gap as opposed to after Endgame. So it doesn't look like it encompassed that much time, that it could start before the 5-year gap, before the everyone was brought back, and then after. I guess it's possible, but anyway, my understanding was that the movie took place after Endgame. So while that's happening, and Jen is freaking out as to how she's going to properly defend him at his parole hearing, she gets called away to Holloway's office, and Dennis is sitting there, and she's like, what the hell? What's going on? Turns out he was dating this shapeshifter who he thought was Megan Thee Stallion. And do I agree with Jen's assessment that it's the most hilarious thing she's ever heard? Yes, I do. Because he's obviously the kind of guy who you just need 2 X chromosomes. Well, actually, no. let me take that back. You just have to look like a woman and Dennis will go after you because he's that shallow. Anyway. So, Pug somehow got roped in to do the case because Dennis didn't want Jen. And then Wong came in and saved her because she's like, okay, I've got to go deal with this. Because, of course, it had to do with Emil Blonsky. And so she talks to Wong. Wong explains what happened. And she's like, okay, you just have to tell the parole board. And so the day of the hearing comes. Wait, before that, they have a preliminary hearing of Dennis and Rona. Is that her name? I wasn't quite sure. And Pug is trying desperately to defend Dennis. And because let's face it, nobody who is of their right mind would assume that she's really Megan Thee Stallion. Now, maybe she's an awesome shapeshifter that she could really sell that she's Megan Thee Stallion. But considering how impish she is, I don't think she could have held it that long. Even if she knew so many things about Megan Thee Stallion that she could really put off a convincing performance, what she did in this episode leads me to believe that no, she couldn't. Because first when Dennis asks for her help, for Pug's help, and what did you find out about this person, blah 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 blah, he seems to come back and say, you know what, I changed my mind. And Pug's like, what? And then he gets a phone call about what had just happened, about that, that this elf, I guess they're calling her, and this says guardian elf, was pretending to be Dennis. He figured it out because Pug's not stupid. He might feel a little unsure of himself, but he's a smart guy. So then she proceeds to transform into him and try to ruin his reputation. But, yeah, he tried to say, oh no, I'm not like that, It's like, you're not doing yourself any favors, Pug. You're actually giving people pause. Because I'm sure that when she saw that you were there and this person is just insane, they would brush it off. They'd be like, okay, it's weird, but it's obviously not the real Pug. So, like I said, Pug is uncertain of himself, but he's a smart guy. So, like I said, they're at the preliminary hearing, and she actually helped herself out briefly, because the judge said, okay, we'll tie this over to trial. And she's like, wait, what? Why? And then proceeds to pretend to be the judge, proving that, yeah, it's pretty obvious that you're not the judge. So proving her case that, no reasonable person could have believed she was Megan Thee Stallion. And, so while that's happening, Jen is, like I said, she met with Blonsky, then she met with Wong. Wong confirmed what Blonsky was saying. And then she's like, great, just tell that to the parole board. So the parole board is set up, and Jen's like, seriously, how can someone with no commute time be late? Which is a good question. And the only answer is the one Wong gave. Time got away from him. He just lost track of time. Because that's literally the only reasonable explanation for being late. When you can just sling ring your way into wherever you need to go. So and we got to meet Blonsky's soulmates, which were literal flower children. Well, they weren't little children, but they were flower children. And so Wong finally gave his testimony after everybody else gave theirs about how he helped them, how he did this, how he did that. And so Wong gave his testimony after he came. As I said, he apologized for being late. He lost track of time. And so then they come back the next day. And the parole board agrees that he can be let go if he can truly control, if he can, before the second day of the parole hearing, they were concerned that he could turn into a rampaging abomination again. And they were concerned that he had no control over himself when he was abomination. And he basically was like, here, I'll show you. And everybody freaks out. It's like, seriously. He's stuck in that cell. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have hit his head on top of it. He could have just busted out. But he didn't. He was just like, hi, I'm here. I'm the abomination. You don't have to worry about me. And everybody's freaking out. And Jen is like, no, it's fine. I honestly thought she was going to turn into She-Hulk. It's like, guys, it's okay. So he goes back to normal after putting a towel around himself. So when he shrinks down, it's obvious he's completely naked. So obviously, the obvious happens for comedic effect, as opposed to just a few rips here or there in the clothing. No, nobody's naked. So he's let go. He got parole. Now, it's entirely possible that all of this is true. I think he might become a member of the Thunderbolts, but those aren't just villains. Those are also anti-heroes. So it's entirely possible that he's going to be an anti-hero, that he's not going to be a villain anymore. I don't know. It's entirely possible he's totally reformed. I'm not going to say either way. He seems like he is, but I think he just showed up because there was later in the season, because there was a scene that they showed at his retreat, and Titania was there and She-Hulk was there. So who knows? So there, and of course there's all these rumors that the reporters would talk about as she walks by, like, I heard you got rejected from the Avengers, or I heard you got your powers from a mafia hit, which is a Easter egg towards Jen's origins and She-Hulk's origins in the comics, where it was a mob hit. She was, there was a mob hit on her, and she was in a coma, and needed a transfusion, and that's how Bruce gave her the transfusion, not simple car accident being run off the road by a Sicarian ship. So, so then they're at a bar, Nikki and Jen. They're at a bar, and Jen is just beside herself. She's so upset. She's like, I just want to be an anonymous lawyer, and after this case I'll be able to do that. And Nikki's like, nah, that's not happening. I mean, they're not interested in you because you're Emil Blonsky's lawyer. They're interested in the She-Hulk. So Pug comes in, and he's just wiped. He's like, how did you manage to work with this guy? So Nikki gave him her drink, and he's like, you need this more than me. And so Nikki mentioned how every day she was killing him in her head, but according to Jen, he thought that Nikki had a crush on him because he's that delusional, which gave Pug an idea, and he's like, would you be willing to testify to that in court? So then we see Jen in the box, talking, answering questions, being examined about what she knows about Dennis. Dennis is unsure about this. It's one of those things where, yes, I'm free, but I got a total hit to the reputation. But that didn't hold him back, of course not. But anyway, so basically Jen, with every word out of her mouth, was insulting Dennis. And she explained that he's rather delusional in his thinking that hot women, or in this case, famous hot women, a famous hot woman would be remotely interested in him because he thinks he's God's gift to women. So that's how Pug won the case, because they basically mentioned what a horrible misogynist and creeper that Dennis is. So they won the case, and Dennis said something about how, I wonder if there was a way to take away her power. She just got a slap on the wrist. And actually, the 60 days in jail was simply because she impersonated a judge. She just had to give back the money that he gave her, which, you know, I mean, obviously she's going to have to give back all the stuff that he gave her, because, but, so yeah, technically it was a light sentence, and, so then I mixed up. Then it was his Emil Blonsky's judgment of whether he made parole, and he suggested to Jen, after he was cleared, that instead of letting others create their own narrative about her, since they're going to talk about her anyway, why don't you weave your own narrative? Go on a talk show, talk about who you are, to prevent others from creating a narrative, which then you have to play whack-a-mole to try and stop everything. So she takes it to heart and she goes on this show and explains how she became She-Hulk, and you see all these toxic masculine posts and TikToks about women and being superheroes and the law and the fact that she's She-Hulk, which she explained that a guy gave her that name and it stuck. You know, it's not like I gave myself that name. I didn't want that name. So it was nice to show toxic masculinity. I'm just waiting. I already saw on Facebook that somebody was bitching that, oh, you're going to lose half your viewership. The MCU is going to lose half their viewership because they pointed out that toxic masculinity exists. I'm sorry. If you're a toxic male who is threatened by the fact that women even exist, sorry, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Get a life? Maybe not be a woman hater? I honestly don't know what to tell you. If that's going to make you say, I'm not going to watch the MCU anymore, number one, I don't think they're going to miss your money. And number two, this person who said half the viewership, I find that hard to believe. I mean, they might be the most vocal. I've seen plenty of toxic males in fandoms. See my fandom suck video. There's plenty of toxic masculinity. It's just that they're the vocal ones. And that doesn't mean that half the viewership are toxic males. It's just that they're the ones who can't shut the fuck up. So, so after that, Jen is walking home and she gets attacked by the wrecking crew. So she gets attacked and she's at first screaming like a damsel in distress that, you know, she's being mugged. And then she's like, oh, wait, turns into She-Hulk and dispatches them. And we find out that her skin is just as impenetrable as Superman's. Because one of the guys tried to take her blood, which I can only assume because they want to make more gamma radiated beings. But as we learned in, what was it, the first episode? That you have to have a certain genetic mutation to not die. So the chances of what they were planning on doing working, not good. So now they mentioned the boss won't be happy or the client won't be happy or something. So I'm really curious who that was. And are we going to meet this person? Because it's obviously not Emil Blonsky, because he knows just as well as everyone else that once she's She-Hulk, you're not going to take her blood. He has the same type of blood, gamma radiated blood. He could just give them his. So obviously it's not Emil Blonsky. I guess it's possible it was Titania, that she wants Jen's blood so she can become like Jen. But as of now, we have no clue who it is. Oh yes, and at the trial, when the judge handed his decision, because Jen gleefully was talking about how horrible Dennis is. Megan Thee Stallion was actually there. And so maybe that's why the CGI is lesser than it should be, because it's obvious her CGI is not as good as Bruce's. It just doesn't, it just, there's just something off about it. I don't know what it is. So maybe that's why because I don't know how much money they had to give Megan Thee Stallion to appear on the show. I mean, maybe she was like, oh, this sounds like fun, you don't have to pay me a lot. But still, they have to pay her something. I mean, I highly doubt she did this out of the goodness of her heart. Maybe she did, but I highly doubt it. Because it is good publicity. Her song played in the post-credits. During the credits and during the post-credits scene, her music was playing. So, I've never heard Megan Thee Stallion before, but after hearing that little bit, I think I'm going to have to check her out. She sounds good. So, and in the post-credit scene, for those who have seen it, because like I mentioned the first episode, every episode has a post-credit scene. And maybe the last one or two might have a post-credit scene that's relevant to what's coming up. I don't know. Anyway, so this post-credit scene is her helping a new client. And it turned out it was actually Megan Thee Stallion. Now, and she's just signing a bunch of stuff. But we don't know what the context is. Megan Thee Stallion just said, you're much more fun than my last lawyer. Because she's actually into her music and twerking. So, yeah. Not a fan of that, but the music, totally fan of. And, so Mr. Holloway walks up and he sees them doing that, and he's like, well, alrighty then. walks on back. So, she even said, I'll kill for you, and Megan Stalion's like, okay, let's tone it down here. So yeah, this was definitely the best episode, definitely the funniest episode. I'm really curious who hired the wrecking crew. I'm really curious when we'll find out, because I'm not aware of her having any solo movies or anything. So this is it. I mean, I'm sure she's going to appear in other people's movies, but not a solo. I'm not aware of one. So it would be nice if they wrap that storyline up. Who wants her blood? My guess is right now Titania. But considering we see her later at a retreat run by Emil Blonsky, and everybody knows he's the Abomination, she literally does not need Jen's blood. She could just ask Emil Blonsky for a little bit of his. So, yeah. Let's see. I believe that's all I have on this episode. I do know Wong appears later in the season as well. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see him again, because he disappeared upon being told that he broke the law and he needs to go to jail, and he's just like, see ya. So how is he going to appear again without, I don't know, being arrested on the spot? That'll be interesting. Especially since was way too eager to do a spell to make everyone forget shit. when he's like, yeah, we tried that. We tried that once. It didn't go over very well. Yeah, I think that's all I have. So I will see you guys next week.